Hello and welcome to the Now Spinning Magazine podcast with me, Phil Aston. And on this episode, I'm delighted to welcome back one of my favourite guitarists, Steve Hackett. Welcome.
Hello, Phil. How you doing?
All right, thank you. Well, looking at your tour itinerary, because my main focus was going to be on the announcement of the UK 2026 tour, which is in October. But literally a few days from where we are now, which is the end of September, you're off to the USA for literally all the way through to the end of November. And then from there, you have a kind of a break until February, then you're off again. And then you've got a cruise from the 4th and 9th of March. And then you go off to Europe, and then you go on to another cruise. And then again, and then October is literally a gig every day in October. So you're a very busy musician.
Yes, indeed.
My first question, really, Steve, is how do you mentally and physically prepare for this huge expanse of creative work, which starts literally on where are we? 4th of October from where we are now. How are you preparing for that now?
Oh my goodness. Funny enough, I've just been in hospital for a couple of days because you get older, things go wrong, biopsies, all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And so normally I'd be downstairs playing like crazy, but also at this point in the year, I seem to have really strong asthma as well. So to say that I'm struggling physically rather than trying to hold up a sort of image of perfect health and capability, I'd rather be honest and say I'm looking forward, by the time I get on the road, to feeling better. It's a strange thing, but I find that usually when I've rattled off a few notes and when I'm in the zone, that seems to change me, and other things become very small by comparison. So there's something about the design, perhaps, or the desire to want to be a musician that bears out my theory in a way that music is the subtext of which is to heal people, including myself. So by the time I'm on stage, usually I have to say I feel no pain because the music is the thing that must be prioritized. So in a way, that's how I prioritize. I mean, I remember years ago seeing stuff, probably right back in the 80s, where Jagger's dressed up as a football player.
I remember that.
And going for, huge runs and cycles and all of that. Well, my lifestyle was pretty much like that at one point. And I was doing a phenomenal amount of sport and what have you. But ironically, at that time when I was at my physically fittest, I wasn't doing that many gigs. It was circumstances that surrounded me meant that I couldn't really get into the game. Yeah. So some days, there'd be 200 push-ups, but nowhere to get the ball in play. Now, of course, the ball is in play, and it's a very interesting time. But I sense the passing of time and the clock ticking and all sorts of things at the moment that have been kind of strange. There's been a lot of sickness in the family, and then all the people that are supposed to be looking after the sick people
have become ill.
Have become ill themselves with COVID, and the COVID seems to be on the rise again. Fortunately, I seem to have escaped that.
Good.
I'm trying to be very honest instead of, as I say, here's perfect image and all that. For as long as this goes on, and for as long as I can make music of the quality that I think I'm doing right at the moment in the studio. I love the new stuff that I've been doing. I've got about 38 minutes worth of stuff recorded. I don't know how long it's going to take to get this album out there, because Roger is pulling away from all things musical at this point in time. I mean, probably go back to it, but it means I'm forced to look outside, the usual solutions for things. But I'm looking forward to being on the road. Usually when I'm on the road, it's a case of you are so busy that you don't really have time to think about, I've got a niggle, I've got that. Most of it'll be by road in America. I pass out between destinations. It's always been a case of, since the 1970s, dig me up for the gig.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always been it. But the music has always, kind of remade me in a way.
So the music in a way is like a moving meditation for you mentally, isn't it? Because as you say, once you lock in the coordinates of the creative, what you do, that anything else kind of drops away. It's kind of like the adrenaline, I guess, that pushes you forward. The difference.
I think so.
I guess the other difference here is, of course, as you say, there is a lineup change in the band, and you've known the current band for so long that almost telepathically, that if you suddenly go over here, the musicians will know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, sure.
So with your new lineup, does that give you an anticipation of something new and exciting to drive along, or is there kind of a trepidation of like, will they know what I'm doing if I do this?
Well, it's both an opportunity, but at the same time, obviously, that may throw up certain challenges. In the past year, I've been working with, and will be working, with 3 different drummers. The next drummer I'm working with this year is Nick DiVirgilio in the States. Previously, for the European stuff, it was Felix Lehrmann, German drummer, very good, and Craig Blundell before that. As far as next year is concerned, once we've gotten this stuff out of the way, the American tour, a couple of months out there, we will have Felix, but also there will be Lawson on keyboards.
Right.
So there will be, a couple of new guys. I think because ever since I worked with Genesis, I always felt that keyboards were, a rock musician's answer to the orchestra. You could access more harmonies. Lots of reliance on keyboard over time. And I've been a great fan of the amazing guys that I've worked with. I know that Lally is amazing. He's an amazing virtuoso, and he's part classical and part rock and jazz, and monster player. We just have to get to the point where I've got enough songs to present, and then some revolving doors. If I say, well, maybe we can consider this one, and I'll get some idea of the pace of absorption within the team.
Yeah.
So in an attempt to cut down and not have quite as many rehearsals as I've had recently with the drum changes, I'm hoping that this will become, a touring team for next year and part of the following year as well. So I'm already, planning ahead. I never thought that rock musicians did this. The idea of that where you'll be even remotely in 2 years' time was something that I saw out of Evelyn Glennie's playbook when I worked with her. Yes, she knew where she was going to be in 2 or 3 years' time, and I thought, wow, that's planning. And then suddenly you find that you're not far off that yourself. But we do what comes naturally to us. It doesn't seem miraculous. I think, as a friend of mine once said to me, all achievements seem so little in retrospect. On the other hand, when you take a lot of stuff on, you're always going to say, am I up to the task? getting on stage at the Royal Albert Hall. Every great player that's, all the heroes that have been on that stage, and thinking, do not fall off the horse. that sort of thing. Yes, it's a thoroughbred. Yeah. But I suspect that I could have quote Segovia. He says, "When you're good, you'll have nerves," and that doesn't go away.
Yeah, I remember when we spoke last time. I talked about the live set of the Lamb highlights, etc. And the first track from, I think, on that album is from The Circus and the Night Well. And I know I always hold this up when we talk, but it's just one of my favourite albums from your catalogue. The guitar playing on that first track is so intense and intricate that I'd asked you, do you have any nerves? And you said there's no space for anything like that, because if you have any doubt, creep in.
Yes. It is a difficult track to play. I don't, there's, some nights I'm going to be better than others. I mean, I've got to admit to being human. Don't get an idea that I'm some good. That ain't true. And I think enthusiasm is the thing that works the best. I mean, I found myself watching Jeff Beck recently, the late great, who we all loved, all great guitarists that I've worked with. I've had enormous respect for what he did. But one of the things I come away with from that is the level of enthusiasm that he had for the medium. And I remember seeing him when he wasn't playing, but the Yardbirds had reformed to play at the 100 Club in London, and he was there with a bottle of beer. He was cheering them on, fist in the air, and all. I thought, the sheer enthusiasm for this. He's got that, always had that, kid in a candy store aspect. So I think if you've got joy, that'll transcend any technological things that you have. And other times when I get moved in other ways, and I think, oh God, I'm lucky to be here, just having witnessed the passing of a friend or something like that. That also, when you allow it to get through to you, this is what the audience does, that the performer doesn't really have time to be devastated emotionally by a piece of music. But it's there to be received in that way, and can be as deep as anything. When I get people saying to me, oh, this album or this song saved my life when blah, 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 and it was terribly important. And I've had those conversations with myself, with some heroes that I've met, and I'll go into confession mode and say how important this was. And then, of course, you become a fan, immediately dismissed by the not another one.
I think what you're saying, Steve, is so true, because there are so many different factors at play. It's not just you as a musician, a real person, authentic, creative person, that how you feel, what you've seen and observed during the day, how you feel physically, how you're feeling yourself will transfer itself through the instrument and through the music you make, and equally the audience, what kind of day that particular person has had when they get to the venue, and maybe they've had an argument at home or something's happened, and then all of a sudden the music connects from you to them, and they walk away and it's changed them because of how they particularly felt at that point in time, isn't it?
And how you felt previously when you I mean, I remember meeting Buffett St. Marie at one point, and she was on stage, Hammersmith, and she started doing a version of Until It's Time for You to Go, and I cracked up. This is what I listened to when I was 15. And I met her afterwards, and she said, yeah, we get them young, and that was it. And she's right, that's it. It's, you share someone's space. You're there in their bedroom. You're part of their family. The strange thing is, you haven't met them, but they've met you. They're very well aware of what concerned you at the time, and I mean, it's music is overwhelming. Let's
yes,
face it, and ought to be, as a great man once said, Roger Dean. An album or music should be overwhelming emotionally. There we are. That's easy. Can I just write that on a? You can't write it on a check, can you? If it doesn't overwhelm you personally, then it's counterfeit. But it should be overwhelming. But yes, it could be tragic, victorious, anything. But as long as it's passionate, and I'm working on that. There's some new things that I really absolutely love. I'm working at the moment, and
okay.
I've just got to finish it. So I'll try not to take too long, but I need things to fall in place like a chess game,
Well, that's the thing about the creativity gene, isn't it? It has to have space to blossom.
It's just frozen at my end. Oh, there you are. Just a drop out there. Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that's how creativity works. It needs space to breathe, doesn't it? You can't force it and say it's got to be done by 5 o'clock this afternoon. It has to come itself, doesn't it? Talking about being the emotional aspect of being hit by music. As I talk to you today, it's the day that The Lamb Lies Down appears.
Yes, it's being re-released. Yes,
I know I wasn't able to attend it, but I know that it was the Dolby playthrough on last Friday, wasn't it?
The Atmos mix, yes.
The Atmos mix.
Right. Yes.
I mean, what are your thoughts? Because hearing the Atmos mix, which I have heard, it's so enveloping, it's so immersive that you suddenly, it's like plopping yourself into a swimming pool full of music.
Yes.
This album is all around you, and you're hearing it in a way that I found it very, very emotional hearing it like that. I mean, for you yourself, Steve, is that kind of approach to music, is that making you think of some of your solo albums could be approached in that way in a future point in time?
Well, it's strange, how something is served up. What system the conditions around it, what system you're listening on. Are you listening on headphones or what? I mean, something like there was a track called Bay of Kings, which is the title track for the first acoustic album I did.
Beautiful track.
Paul Gosling did a sort of interview thing fairly recently with me, and he used a little bit of that. And something must have happened because I think maybe the signal became slightly monoized, so there was a bit less reverb with it, and it sounded absolutely perfect, almost like a tolling bell drawing you in. And because there's a D that runs throughout it, through just about every change, there's a D bass note, and I'm trying to come up with as many harmonies as I possibly can. The rhythm was a habanera from Havana, as in Bizet and Carmen and all of that. I didn't know that at the time when I did it, but you find out later, because I'm not really a theorist. I've not been taught. I just orientate towards what really moves me. And I'm sorry if I haven't answered the question properly, but I'm famous for wandering off the pitch.
That's fine. What I'd like to actually ask you now, Jo is your wife and obviously your partner in life and everything. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was, because you've got these tours coming along and it's Genesis highlights and solo stuff. I wonder, does Jo have any influence on what goes into the set? She must have some favorite albums of yours, either Genesis or your solo stuff.
She does, but I don't want her to be blamed. I think that when we were in COVID, we were asking fans and
Yeah.
what were their favourites, and so it was quite interactive and interesting. And I think what I would be playing is largely driven by fans. Obviously, there's the aspect of a quorum there. Not everyone is going to agree.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
What is it you would like to hear? It's so terribly subjective. But I tell you what was interesting the other day, meeting up with the guys from Genesis.
Yeah.
Four out of five of us were there. Phil couldn't make it. There are health issues, as well known.
Yeah. Yes.
But what I found very interesting was that Tony was saying something that I've often said in interviews. He was saying that the two albums that he thinks, really engaged him, what it's all about, was Foxtrot and Selling England by the Pound. Those two back to back, and I was able to chime in with, yes, I agree, and I think there's not a weak track on both of those. And he mentioned his fondness for Supper's Ready, to which we all contributed our all at the time. Now, I suspect that the long-form aspect of Supper's Ready was being played out over these great long sides of continuous music, musical long form.
Yeah.
So I suspect we'd arrived at the same point in a way that Yes had arrived at with Topographic Oceans and the idea of trying to do a kind of major work. So I think that The Lamb as a story and as a journey works in that way. It depends on what mix you hear. Again, there's certain things. There are certain tracks I like playing live most of all because I feel that they come alive like that. This stuff was written pretty much eyeball to eyeball, and with a minimum of overdubs. Yes, there was the odd 3-part harmony guitar solo I remember doing on anyway, but it's in the main one guitar. That was it. I can do this live. No point getting too fussed about this. Tony practicing solos so he could deliver them. All live, of course.
Yeah.
No sequencing. The benefit of the mellotron, of course, is the great sort of Frankensteinian impersonator of the orchestra and choir and all of that. These things are all very well, but there was a simplicity implicit in it. I find that when I do it now, certain things have happened. The addition of things to, so you're not just hearing keyboards simulating something, you've got keyboards and brass together. And so that seems to transform certain things as well. I mean, I'm a bit of a detail freak, I must admit, and I love that. And I love the fact that this stuff, on a good night, it is.
Well, it's
lovely.
It's the new classical music in a way, and
that's what we can dream for. Yes.
Yeah, and when the audience listens to Supper's Ready, it sounds it's now. So if I play it today, it's in 2025, and that's how that track sounds. But for you, as a musician, you have evolved in your playing, in the way your style of playing, how you think. So for you having to recreate that, it must be a different dynamic. It's like giving someone the instructions to make a cup of tea. Within a few weeks, people would like to put their own flavour or way of doing it. So it must take a lot of discipline and attention to detail to remain fairly true to the original without wanting to think, I wouldn't do that now. I'd do this because I can.
Sure. Yeah. I know, again, I'm quoting Tony because I think we've got a lot of respect for each other these days and affection. And, on The Lamb, he said the moment on Fly on a Windshield where we all come in together that is the moment for him that he thinks has most emotional impact. I mean,
Totally.
for me, it extends, starts there and continues on. The wall of death, the wall of sound. The massive keyboards, the ability to be able to swim in and out with guitar. The version I did with Steve Rothery
Oh,
at the
yes.
Albert Hall goes on and on and on. But
And could keep going on, Steve. Yeah, it's just beautiful.
It's funny that, you see, because I think keyboard players are divided over this. I'm not saying Tony, but people say, oh, it's far too long, and others say, oh, it's not long enough. So
Yes.
you've got that division. But there's something beautiful about Tony's chords on that. And I was asking the other day, I said, were you influenced by Respighi, the idea of the legions coming to life, and Mussorgsky, heroes coming to life? And he didn't orientate towards that, but we did have this allusion to Nicholas Rosser's music for the 1957 Ben-Hur, the ramming speed sequence. So the drums are really on, there's someone beating time, but it's just this. Essentially, the bass part is just one note, and it's just keeping time, which leaves space for everything. One of these days, I must transfer the keyboard work over to a symphony orchestra.
Yes.
And allow it to, if not develop, but just, maybe not too many guitar phrases, but to become aware of the size of this kind of feeling of the march past of humanity, if you like, the idea of perhaps mankind striding under the lash, as we all do metaphorically, and do it like that. I think that that is not a priority to the former Genesis members, but that's been my idea, that perhaps if you talk about the spirit of classical music, and that if this is the classical music of the future, then I like to think that we could at some point deliver that in a meaningful and perhaps not too improvised, but in other words, here's the score. I hear things within it. I hear, when you've got an MXR phaser going on an RMI piano and a Mellotron strings playing together, and you hear the phase, if that was orchestra, well, then you'd be hearing the harp going. Boom.
Yeah.
So, yes, the brass, the strings, the woodwind, ask Ravel.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to talk to Tony about his classical albums when he released that box set with them all together. I mean, maybe. I mean, there's something way off in the future where you and Tony could do a classical bass thing with the guitar, together, because there is a link with
never say never, because I think in spirit we're very much concerned with that. I mean, I would like, if it ever happened, I'd like it to have something to do with world peace, because
yes,
the idea of turning the clock back and have two people who run their own show working together may not be as easy, but the idea of and including the rest of the Genesis guys subsuming ego in favor of
music,
a greater cause, and music as the substance of it, the thing that we can offer, the only thing we can fight it with is music. All the tragedy that we're surrounded with the world going.
That's why you, Steve,
and what you do.
What you do, Steve, is shine a light in the darkness with your music just touches so many people.
Well, I think all touring musicians at this point, become ambassadors, because
yes,
you're going to see someone. They might come from your country, but very rarely your hometown, or it's someone else. Whether you're watching Italian opera or whatever. But the transplant of all of this, say, the cultural cross pollination and the possibilities of
Yeah.
all the healing that can be done. I've said it before. I sound very much soapbox, but music doing something that politics, in its divisive, populist way, is not delivering to people, and should be. Again, we should be celebrating the best, and we need a lot more peace and love right now.
We certainly do.
And so I'll drink to that, and it's only water.
And I've got one last question.
Sure.
I read recently that Carlos Santana has an album. He plays A Love Supreme by John Coltrane in every hotel he stays in to kind of cleanse it. I just wondered, is there an album that for you play a lot when you're away, or something that kind of does balance, kind of relax you, whatever's going on in the world? Do you have an album, or if it might be several, or something that you always take with you?
No, I'm not very good at listening to music when I'm away. What tends to happen is I have the notebook, and here it is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And when I'm bussing around, as I do, being flown, being driven, being fed, all these things, I want to hear the musical future.
Right.
And so I've got lots of jottings of things that go absolutely nowhere. Lots of things that, thousands of beginnings of great things that don't go any further. But when I get them down on paper, they surface. So of course I will be aware of the great things that people have done. In fact, when progressive bands are mentioned, it very rarely does Procol Harum ever get mentioned, but I find it very interesting that they tried to integrate. There's a little squirrel outside begging for food because I feed them. Anyway, the idea of that, it's absolutely lovely. You know, the stuff that they did together, Gary Brooker and Matthew Fisher, and coming up with fabulous arrangements for orchestra. In a way, they were another Beatles in that sense.
Yes.
And I'd like to think in time, perhaps they will become celebrated all over again, because there was a love of classical music. There was a love of story. There was a seafaring aspect. There are things I've yet to hear, like the album with the Edmonton Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that, but I need to hear that. And so, it's on my Christmas list, really.
You can listen to it in between that little break in the American tour, perhaps.
Yes, I was just getting to know Gary Brooker, and there was an invitation to get together when we were on the cruise together, and then COVID hit, and then he was no longer around. But in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what could we have written together? Is there something that we could have broken bread, shared some wine, and perhaps I could have told him what I liked about things without appearing to be too much of a fan. Yes. Certain things reign supreme. So we just have to wait for the world of spirit where everyone's back.
All right.
And it's like, do you want to do something? Yeah, why not? The great friends that I've lost, Ian MacDonald, John Wetton, Chris Squire, and then about to be Gary Brooker, and the wonderful things that we've all spent lots of time in their company, haven't we? So
very, very true. Well, we'll get the top of the hour now for the interview, Steve, and I just want to wish you and Joe best of health and good luck for the tour. And
thank you very much.
If everyone wants to know where to go, it's hackettsongs.com. All the tour information's there, blog posts, updates, news, and everything you could possibly want. But thanks, Steve. Thanks for your time again. And I hope you're fully fit, stage fit for.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope everyone enjoys Lamb Lies Down. So great to be doing some of that live as well, of course. So all the best.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Steve. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye. A huge thank you to my guest, Steve Hackett. This is the 5th time I've been lucky enough to talk to Steve. And I never in any point when I talk to anyone, interview anybody, take for granted that how lucky I am to be in this position, to be able to talk to people who I remember seeing on stage at the Birmingham Odeon decades ago. And there I was, towards the back of the room. I never would have thought that years later I'd have a chance to sit down and chat to them. Steve is one of my favourite guitarists, musicians, creative people. And when you look at, go to hackettsongs.com and look at the itinerary, at the point of me doing this, where the tour that starts on October the 4th and goes all the way through to the end of 2026. And he mentioned in the interview about what he's doing in 2027. I mean, it's the kind of schedule that many of us, normal mortals, will be thinking, gosh, to have that in your diary, it's a huge undertaking for a band if they're in their 20s or 30s. For an older musician like Steve and the band, and the amount of work that goes into this, it's incredible that he's so driven creatively to do this. I'm still very much at the top of his game. The guitar playing on the Lamb Stands Up highlights the Royal Albert Hall gig. That duet he does with Steve Rothery, the guitar playing is just amazing. And in the first track, People of the Smoke, it is jaw-droppingly amazing. And that's from, technically, Steve's most recent studio album, The Circus and the Night Whale, which is still one of my favourites, even though it's a more recent one. I know for us older music fans, we kind of lean back into the past, don't we? But really, Steve is producing work now that's as good as anything he's ever done. And I think one of the things we saw in that interview is a kind of vulnerability of Steve. And, he's obviously coming out of not feeling 100%. And how music is, as I say, is the healer and the doctor. But how music can actually do that. I mean, I know people who have artistic endeavors and it takes them away from chronic pain, and certain albums changes the way they feel. And we talked about that. And we also talked about some other things that some of you would have latched onto quite quickly. And I'm not going to turn that into a clickbait title, but any possibility that Steve might be working with any of his ex-Genesis colleagues in either one of them or several of them together on a project that has a wider scope than what they used to do on a new piece of music. Because having spoken to Tony and his classical stuff, and the way that Steve's classical guitar playing, some of the albums around me, I always put as many albums as I can about the artist surrounding me to make the artist feel that they're talking to somebody who actually knows a bit about them. But a lot of Steve Hackett's classical tinged albums are absolutely essential listening. So wherever you are when you watch or listen to this, go and listen to some Steve Hackett music. And if you're lucky enough to be in a part of the world where Steve is landing near you to do a gig, make sure you go and see him. And if you can't do that, then make sure you play one of these. There are loads of them now recorded at the Royal Albert Hall, but it's almost like his second home. But they are so meticulously recorded, and just enjoy the journey. But it is amazing that the Genesis albums, and of course I've recently reviewed at the time of this podcast going out, the Lamb Lies Down Dolby Atmos version, just timeless, literally, potentially the new classical music. Anyway, thank you for watching and listening. Please subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, ring that little bell. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or wherever your favorite podcast platform is, please subscribe. Remember, we're on social media, and check out the website at nowspinning.co.uk. And last of all, please go to Hackett Songs for all the latest news on Steve Hackett. If you become a patron or a YouTube member, then you can get 15% off all Now Spinning magazine merch. You can also come along to our private music collectors communities on WhatsApp and Facebook, and also get an invite to our twice monthly meetup at the Now Spinning Arms, which is our own virtual pub. Take care, all of you. Music really is the healer and the doctor, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.